Your skin has its own circadian rhythm, and it's actually on the opposite schedule that we're on because your skin is nocturnal. When you go to bed at night, your skin wakes up, it starts its day, it does all of its cellular repair work, it's rebuilding collagen, all of the proteins and building blocks of your skin. And then during the day, it essentially goes to sleep, shielding itself, it's protecting itself. The barrier is at its strongest and at its peak because you're interfacing with the environment and pollution and sunlight and all of these other damaging factors. Then the cycle continues, but it operates on two very distinctive 12-hour cycles, a protect mode and a repair mode. Unlocking those modes is really the key to caring for your skin. It's very simple. And your skin does most of its renewal between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And you want to apply your strongest skincare actives, your most heavy hitting skincare products, your peptides and your retinols, et cetera, right before that window, because then your skin can actually make use of those ingredients. Whereas during the day, your skin is asleep and really not doing very much with them.
Hello, Katey. Welcome.
Hi, Michael. Great to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. I have wanted to have you on the show since we started the Augmented Life because we were talking over a year ago about the beauty industry and word of mouth marketing, a wide-ranging discussion that crystallized for me that this industry is full of biohackers, like really serious biohackers, including some of the most influential customers. Like if you want to spread by word of mouth, you need to get the respect of these absolutely obsessive self-experimenters. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is incredible. There's so much to learn here.
It's absolutely true. And one of the things that I love about the beauty industry is that it's really that intersection between art and science. And that it's a place where there's excellence in both of those fields. And it's really rare to find that combination, right? There's such a clear path to commercializing unique science. And then there's pushing the boundaries when it comes to the art and the romance and the storytelling. And then, of course, there's so many different ways of approaching the product selections and categories. So I couldn't agree more. It is fascinating. And that's why it's a $500 billion industry worldwide.
Right. I had first encountered this kind of thinking, I actually, long ago, I learned from one of Tim Ferriss's books that you can learn a lot from the bodybuilding community, a lot about like valid N=1 kind of experiment, because you have this community for whom almost by definition, like willpower is not an issue. They are obsessives. They will try anything that works. They are incredibly detailed in like their note taking, and then they share with the community, right? So, and then finally, they're like extremely outcomes focused, So that's like a community research operation, that's been going on for years. As I've been interviewing people, doing biohacking, a lot of it is focused on like longevity or developing like new physical capabilities. But you see the same kind of practice in beauty with like incredible self-experimenters, and the same outcome focus, right? Like you literally look at your face every day. Like there it is.
No, it's very true. And, throughout the course of my career, I've worked in makeup, I've worked in skincare. And right now I'm deeply, deeply fascinated by skincare because it's something that you can approach from such a functional perspective.
Right.
At the end of the day, your skin is your largest organ. It is the interface between your body and the rest of the world. It protects the rest of your organs from the outside environment. And you can really take a super functional and even cellular approach to how you care for your skin. Or you can take a completely self-expressive approach, right? It might be about how you want to apply makeup and like really show a certain aspect of yourself to the world. It might be that you really want to indulge in self-care and a sense of ritual. But there are so many different paths and ways into the industry. And again, this is why it's a $500 billion industry and also one of the longest running elements of human history. So, I mean, we know dating back to the ancient Egyptians 7,000 years ago that beauty rituals were alive and well. Like we know what Cleopatra's beauty routine was. And that is just absolutely astounding to me to be a part of that kind of legacy and longevity throughout human history.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, I want to talk to you as an entrepreneur and inventor. I love what you've been building. But I also want to certainly talk about this community. You you mentioned just how large the market is. I think we all have the experience when we're looking at, especially skincare products, that there's just too many to choose from, and it just cannot be the case that they're all equally scientific. I look at the ingredients labels and I'm like, I wonder how many of these things are just there to sound nice.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm.
And I know that it's not just me thinking that, right? So you have in your customer community a bunch of like almost obsessive debunkers. How does that work? I would love to hear like what you have learned from those like hyper educated consumers.
Yeah, I actually think it's one of the most exciting evolutions that we've seen in beauty in the last 10 years. It's primarily on the rise of social media, and that there are more and more people who've perhaps been in the background in developing beauty products, whether they're cosmetic chemists or they're formulators or people who are, just involved in building lots of brands, but people who have this really inside knowledge about what's going on in the kitchen, who are now coming to the forefront and sharing all of that knowledge with the broader community. And there's such a deep sense of curiosity with the skincare community, with the beauty community, because at the end of the day, it's very, very challenging for a consumer to differentiate between this white cream, and this white cream,
Right.
right? And that's why marketing, branding, all of these other aspects of the skincare industry are so refined and important because those are different vehicles that we're using to communicate the differences in these products. But now there's such a passion for understanding the science, the ingredient percentages, breaking down ingredient lists, understanding delivery systems in different products. And I think it's amazing. In a lot of ways, it holds the industry to a much higher bar
Right.
to ensure that they are saying what's really going on underneath the hood in the product, because there will be people investigating and holding them accountable if it turns out just to be marketing and sort of puffery instead.
Yeah, right, right. Well, after working for, a long time for some pretty extraordinary companies, you set out on your own. Really, like from my outside perspective, it seems like a critical breakthrough of yours was on the delivery system. So can you just take us inside like how formulation works? How do you innovate at that layer? And then how do you, um, like iteratively test that it's working the way you want?
So I am of the opinion that delivery systems are going to be the future of how we differentiate when it comes to skincare. The way that a lot of products work right now is we talk a lot about ingredients, that it has this concentration of this ingredient or this ingredient, and this one is important for this reason. But what nobody is asking is whether that ingredient is actually getting delivered to your skin. So one ingredient that we've been very focused on are peptides. They are a tried and true active ingredient in skincare. They are very, very well researched, and we know that they work in terms of their capacity to help rebuild collagen and the building blocks of the skin, right? So when we look at peptides, for example, a lot of products, lots of peptide products. I mean, you can go to the drugstore and find them. You can go literally anywhere. You will find a peptide product. But what you won't find is the additional information that peptides are notoriously very unstable ingredients. A lot of times the enzymes in your skin just sort of eat up the peptides. They're doing their job, they're doing their work before they can actually get to the part of your skin that makes use of them. So with that being said, you're just sort of slathering these ingredients on your skin that don't end up doing very much for you. And that's where the delivery systems come in, and they become so important in actually stabilizing and functionalizing some of these incredible, incredible ingredients that have been discovered. And so, where I think a lot of the communication is going to go over the next 10 years is brands having unique delivery systems, differentiated delivery systems. And for us in particular, for the products that we're developing, we did focus on delivery systems for peptides. How do we protect them and make sure that they actually get to the cells that can make use of them? And then also, how can we make sure that they don't degrade when they are in contact with the enzymes in your skin and your skin is literally just doing its job? So both can exist at the same time with a really intentional delivery system.
Right, right, right. Okay, so take us inside the lab work. I'm so curious about the supply chain. So so first of all, I would love if you could just paint us a picture when you're on the production side, like how big is the world of the sellers of chemical precursors, like ingredients, and then who can it, build you something custom, especially when you're trying to operate at the level of innovation in delivery, as opposed to just like I'm tweaking the percentages of the ingredients.
Yes, exactly. And I love the way that you frame that because there is such a wide range of approaches that brands take to product development. And you can even find within the same brand multiple approaches. There's a lot of competition in the industry. It's a very easy industry to enter. Competition is super high. There's, it's very tight margins. And so what ends up happening is that speed to market becomes so important. When you have speed to market, then that might incentivize some companies to take what we call like an off the shelf product, which is a contract manufacturer comes up with a product, they come up with an ingredient story, they pitch it out to a number of brands.
No way.
And a brand
Wow.
might just put their label on the product and then sell it exactly as is. You might find another brand that has a signature ingredient that they'll just add to the product and then sell it as a version of the product with the signature ingredient. And at the marketing stage or at the point that you are in a Sephora or Ulta or Target and you're making that selection, it's really rather opaque what that process was that created the product itself. Now, what we do, and a number of brands do this that really are very, very focused on driving innovation. And for us, quite frankly, we have to sacrifice a bit of speed to market in order to accomplish this, is we are very focused on the sourcing of individual ingredients and of individual technologies. So some ingredients we might discover by going to these really cool ingredient fairs that happen a couple of times a year. They're quite often in Europe, and it's all different ingredient suppliers around the world. And they're talking about different innovations and breakthroughs that they have discovered and uncovered through their continuous work in ingredient science. So we're really coming down to the ingredient level. Then there's also the opportunity to look at inspiration from other industries. Where do we see really interesting things happening? Maybe in the food industry, there might be an ingredient that we've heard a lot about that we want to see if there's any research around topically. Or it might come down to, really wanting to source something from a particular growing region of the world because you believe very strongly in the sustainability goals or environmental elements that exist there. So there are a lot of different approaches when it comes to individual ingredient selection, but at the end of the day, there is usually a trade-off between finding something that is super innovative and something that is super researched, because the longer that something has been, the newer something is, the less research has been conducted on it. Something that's really tried and true, there's usually a lot of research, and then you're making adjustments at the margins. But for a brand like us, we really do go and we source all the way down to, for botanical ingredients, all the way down to the specific farms and growing regions in the world that we want to source an ingredient. And we work from that point forward. We also are looking for unique technologies that we can commercialize. We know that there's a lot of cutting edge technologies that are coming out, again, with delivery systems. But a lot of times they don't always fit into a brand's story or their ingredient architecture or the way that they like to market their products. They might be too expensive for a brand to integrate into their formulation process. So that's where we get a bit of an advantage as a small, really innovative brand because we're not constrained by any of those barriers that some of the big brands might have when it comes to commercializing really, really unique technologies. So we start at the ingredient level. We're, of course, very dialed and focused on what the contract manufacturers are creating and what they're pitching to different brands, because we know that that's very reflective of what the shelf in store is going to look like in 2 to 3 years from now. So we're always keeping a lens on, okay, we think that our competitors are going to be developing X, we're going to do Y. And we know that if we're working at the ingredient level and with innovations there, that we're probably be 4 or 5 years ahead of where the market is, as opposed to 1 to 2 years ahead.
Yeah. Wow. Like hearing that made me, I found myself in that story. I was thinking, oh my gosh, I have been looking at the shelf and, you know, I see something. Oh, hyaluronic acid. That's the ingredient for me. Okay. Like it's like being a single issue voter. I was like, oh, okay. That's probably the one. And hearing this and realizing, oh my God, that could have been just the marketing strategy to reach me.
Well, I mean, first of all, that's a great ingredient to focus on. If you're going to select one, I definitely think that that's one that should be in your decision framework. But, if you were to say hyaluronic acid to somebody who was, very deeply involved in the industry on a day-to-day basis, we would probably have a 30-minute discussion about the different molecular weights of the hyaluronic acid
Right.
and the way that they interact with your skin. And I think that that's really where, coming back to social media and the community element, that's where the community is as well. They're very curious about the number of different weights of hyaluronic acid and the way that they're penetrating your skin or not.
Yeah, right. So what have you seen in consumer communities to try to get rigorous in testing? I mean, let's talk about the obsessive. So we're talking about people who like, do 30-day tests of 12 different products in a year.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely a lot of tests that consumers are doing on their own. We call them wear tests or road tests, where they might be trying out a product themselves and then giving feedback to their community on what it is that they're seeing and experiencing. But at the end of the day, I've always found with whether it's makeup or skincare, fragrance, et cetera, that every single person who tries a product or experiences it has an opinion on it. Because we're all consumers, right? We all have, they're all very sensorial, and that there are so many opinions that are out there. So one of the things that's happened is I think it's become very important for brands, including small brands like us, to do our own research and our own clinical studies. So when we were talking about the ingredient suppliers and the contract manufacturers, other partners who are along the supply chain, they are doing a lot of research themselves. They're doing studies on individual ingredients at different concentrations, the ability to make claims that at 2% this ingredient will do this, at 4% it will do this, for example. So we do have some sort of baseline for performance coming out of the extensive research that is done by the ingredient suppliers. Now, what we do as a brand is there are really 2 different types of research that are out there, and it's a bit tricky for consumers to navigate some of this. There's third-party independent clinical research that's done that tends to be very expensive, sometimes prohibitively expensive for very small brands like us. And then the other type is consumer panel research. Consumer panel research is essentially hiring, a group, you could consider it like a focus group of customers or potential consumers who will use the product over a set period of time and then evaluate it based on their own experience. They saw X, Y, and Z in their skin. They saw a 90% increase in radiance. They saw a 50% decrease in wrinkles. And that's super subjective. It is their experience. There is no way to measure that and to really be, but at the end of the day, the consumer is subjective, and that's still quite relevant.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
But what we do is we really focus on, for us, we make pretty significant investment in doing that third-party clinical research where we hire an independent lab, expert graders, and they are doing instrument measurements of changes in skin, whether it's the elasticity of your skin over time, whether it's the hydration levels of your skin over time. There are really advanced technologies and machines to detect very small differences in the skin, but those are not arbitrary measurements. They are measured, and they are some of the best information that we can have around product performance.
Wow. Ooh. And so how from end to end, from like planning the study to having a result, like how much time goes into that?
Well, it really depends on the length that you want to run the study for. The longer they are, the more expensive they are. But on the whole, you'll see a lot of studies that are in the 4 to 6 week range. You might see studies that go up to a 12-week range, but it really depends on the results that the brand is looking for around the product, because a lot of times what you'll see is when you try a new skincare product, the benefits will accumulate, and then they'll sort of taper off.
Ah, yeah, got it.
Kind of want to end your study around that tapering off point. And that's true for every brand. That's not an us thing. That is an everyone thing. And that's one of the most fascinating parts, is that your skin really does adapt. And then sometimes if you take a product out of your routine for a while, then you can sort of ride that curve yet again when you reintroduce it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, but that's got to be really challenging as an entrepreneur, because there's going to be that accumulation curve, which is not necessarily the same as I'll call it the buyer validation window, right? So if I'm evaluating you for 4 days and it turns out that actually there's a cumulative effect for 30 days, then I'm like drawing the wrong conclusion.
Well, I think that's when it's important to be really clear in your communications, right? So when we share our clinical research with consumers, we are very clear on what they can expect on a 30-day mark, what they can expect after 6 weeks of use. But we also do a lot of evaluation, and this is more on the consumer panel side because we are an overnight skincare brand. And what that means is that, we design products that are primarily designed to be used at night. And we do a lot of evaluations of what people see when they wake up in the morning. How quickly do they see results? Is it one night? Is it 2 nights, et cetera? So the onus is really on the brand to set the expectations of what the consumer can expect to see at the different points in time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I see. All right. So help us evaluate, or no, really what I want to say is help us navigate all of this complexity. Like, all right. So let's say that I want to get really deliberate about my skincare. And there's what I need is some guidance about, the baseline program, and then let's say, fine tuning. I grew up in Northern California, which is, in a part of Northern California which is constantly wet, nice, beautiful, cold rainforest environment in the Pacific Northwest. So I don't know. I think I never thought about my skin when I was there. It was only until I moved to the East Coast and we get the cold winters that drop all the moisture out of the air that I realized that skincare is important. So maybe we start there. Like what is the baseline to keep your skin like healthy, over a year? And then if I want to do my own experimentation, like what does self-experimentation in this category look like?
I'm going to say something that might surprise you.
Okay.
And the answer is very simple. The best thing that you can do for your skin is get a great night's sleep.
Wow.
And it sounds wildly simple, and it's also free. So maybe that's why a lot of brands aren't talking about it this way. But in all of my years, over 15 years in the beauty industry, the most interesting, exciting, and surprising thing that I've learned about the skin is that it has its own circadian rhythm. It has its own cycles and clock. And that by tapping into the way that that clock is functioning, you can unlock all of the things that you are discussing and concerned about: hydration levels, the way that your skin feels, the aging process, and that's really the key to caring for your skin effectively, both immediately and then in the long term as well.
Well, you're blowing my mind right now. That's incredible.
I know. I'm also surprised that it's really that simple. But at the end of the day, your skin is a really brilliant organ, and it is designed itself in a way where during the day, it's focused on protecting the rest of your organs, protecting you from the external environment. And at night, it shifts into a 12-hour repair mode. And at night, cellular repair and renewal is 30 times higher in the skin. You are repairing DNA damage from things like sun and oxidative stress and pollution exposure during the day. Your skin is just like this incredible overnight maintenance crew, but you really need to create the right conditions for your skin to be able to do that work.
Right. Wow. One thing that I've heard from Fulcra customers is that they're using their D-silo data to find like surprising impacts on their sleep, like the behaviors they took during the day that have a big effect on how well they sleep much later. So people are shifting when they eat, when they exercise, etc. And so it's only just now occurring to me while learning from you that a skincare ritual can also be part of actually coaching your body and mind into getting into sleep mode.
Absolutely. And your skin has, like a number of other organs, your skin has its own circadian rhythm. And it's actually on the opposite schedule that we're on because your skin is nocturnal. When you go to bed at night, your skin wakes up, it starts its day, it does all of its cellular repair work, it's rebuilding collagen, all of the proteins and building blocks of your skin. And then during the day, it essentially goes to sleep. It's shielding itself, it's protecting itself. The barrier is at its strongest and at its peak because you're interfacing with the environment and
Right.
pollution and sunlight and all of these other damaging factors. And then the cycle continues, but it operates on two very distinctive 12-hour cycles, a protect mode and a repair mode. And unlocking those modes is really the key to caring for your skin. It's very, very simple. And your skin does most of its renewal between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And you want to apply your strongest skincare actives, your most heavy hitting skincare products, anything that's going to help facilitate that overnight renewal, like your peptides and your retinols, et cetera, right before that window, because then your skin can actually make use of those ingredients.
Right.
Whereas during the day, your skin is asleep and really not doing very much with them. Then you need SPF, you need antioxidant protection from things that you're, again, interacting with in the environment. But that's it. A great night's sleep, antioxidants and SPF during the day, and then applying your actives right before you go to bed at night is the entire routine.
Ooh, wow. Oh, that is not what I was expecting to hear at all. That was amazing.
Well, I'm probably not supposed to make it this simple. It's really,
right.
That's not necessarily what sells the most product. But at the end of the day, really understanding and harnessing your skin's own biorhythm and its own processes that have been created over centuries and centuries of adaptation in order to repair and recover and recharge itself. That's what you want to tap into to really unlock things like that comfort and hydration level in your skin.
Yeah, wow.
Skin aging is really something that hinges on understanding the circadian rhythm of your skin. And if you are not sleeping well, your skin will actually start prematurely aging. And this is something that has been a source of fascination for me ever since I learned this. I mean, I learned this several years ago and it just truly blew my mind.
Wow. Okay. All right. So let's fast forward. I've established a good routine, conscious of my skin's circadian rhythm. Do you see downstream effects? So like I'm thinking about what are the broader downstream effects of getting this dialed in? What do you see?
Well, let's talk about aging for a second.
Yeah.
And whether aging is something that you care about because you care about the appearance of your skin while you age, or you care about the functionality of your skin while you age, it really doesn't matter. It's all intertwined in the same. So what really fascinates me, we know that there are intrinsic and extrinsic factors to skin aging, right? That the extrinsic factors are things that you're exposed to in your environment, and the intrinsic factors with the circadian rhythm of your skin. And what fascinates me is that sleep is the one habit or behavior that actually affects both the intrinsic and extrinsic drivers of skin aging.
Oh.
So let me break that down for you and what that means. The skin, as we get older, our skin circadian rhythm gets a little bit less precise, probably like a lot of systems in our body, right? But when that rhythm is a little bit less precise and starts to become less efficient, it is less efficient at creating proteins like collagen that are the building blocks of your skin, of repairing that damage and stress that you've encountered during the day. Repairing your skin barrier is also a huge function of your skin at night. And when your skin becomes less effective at doing those things, then when you wake up and you go out the next day, your
Mhm.
skin isn't as good at protect mode. When your barrier isn't fully repaired, it's more susceptible to the different things that it will encounter in the environment throughout the day.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
more susceptible to damage. That damage becomes greater. You go to bed at night, greater damage, and even less effective skincare routines and cycles and habits in being able to treat that. So that is a cycle that really perpetuates itself, that once the sleep is disrupted or is starting to shift in the aging process, it really does start to break down on a cumulative basis
Right.
over time. And that's why it's so important to understand this cycle and to be really very thoughtful about supporting your skin at each of the different times of day. That protect mode with your SPF and sort of like adding to that shield, because your skin might not be as effective in shielding itself. And then at night, adding ingredients that help really stimulate and encourage that repair cycle, because it might have gotten sluggish over time. So to me, it's being able to not just deliver the right ingredients, but be able to give your skin the right ingredients at the right time.
Yeah.
And maybe an analogy, or one that I like to think of, I think quite often in analogies is, you wouldn't necessarily have a cup of coffee right before you go to bed at night, or take a melatonin gummy, right? When you wake up first thing in the morning, and your skin is the exact same way. It's no exception. And you have to be really thoughtful about when you give it certain ingredients,
Right.
and the timing really, really is everything.
All right. Let's talk about, speaking of skin as barrier. It can be better or worse. You can also have better or worse helpers in the form of your skin's microbiome. When we
Mhm.
had Dr. Mason on the show, I expressed some curiosity about like the degree to which perhaps my skin's microbiome changes through acute stress, like visiting a Korean spa. I know you were working on tweaks to the skin's microbiome in the past. What did you learn?
Yeah. So prior to founding Nocturnal Skincare, I was the head of brand of Tula Skincare, which was the world's first probiotic skincare brand. It was founded by a gastroenterologist and practicing doctor at NYU, and really started with the insight that she, would give her patients probiotics for different, gut health concerns,
Uh-huh.
and they would come back to see her several months later, and their skin would just be glowing. And then, of course, there was a body of research that came out about the topical relevance of probiotics in skincare, and about the skin's microbiome. So the skin, I've mentioned several times that it's a physical barrier with the world, but it's also a chemical barrier, because you do have all of these microorganisms living on your skin. The measure of how healthy your skin's microbiome is a measure of diversity. How diverse are the different microbiota that are living on your skin? And a few things that really are fascinating about this are that microbiome is, yes, different at different times of day. It
What?
is different if you wash your face with a really, strong and abrasive cleanser. You're going to be washing away a lot of good bacteria that you might be wishing to keep. And then the other part is that it's completely different in different parts of your body. Your armpit skin and your back skin and your facial skin all has a different composition. So even if you were to understand what your skin microbiome looked like, it would not only constantly be changing, but it would also be very different depending on where your body you took the sample from.
Wow. Okay. So now
I mean, yeah,
this,
mind blowing. I love this.
yes. You've touched on something that leads me to a question I've always wondered about. There's always a price difference. There's like a unit price difference when you're looking at like a face lotion versus sort
Hmm.
of a general lotion. Is that just like, am I just being taken advantage of? Is that just higher profit, or is there really something different in those formulations?
No, there's really something different in those formulations. We tend to put the most research, the most impressive active ingredients, delivery systems, et cetera, into facial skincare because it's what people care about the most. I mean, your face is really the way that you interact with everyone in the world, and it's something that people are meticulous about the changes in. So I think that because of that, the face is the most when it comes to the beauty industry, at least the most studied and understood part of the skin, and that generally speaking, a lot of the same ingredients that work on your face will work on the rest of your body, but that to apply them in the same concentrations might be prohibitively expensive for
I see.
consumers and not quite worth, it's not quite worth the same investment, especially if you're going to cover up that skin
Yeah.
during the
Gotcha.
day. And also just to add on to that, I mean, because your face is exposed all the time, it's also the one that's the most damaged, right? Like your
Oh
face and
yeah.
your neck are the most exposed to the environment. The physical barrier of clothing is actually an effective barrier in a lot of circumstances in protecting your skin.
Right.
That's why the skin on your back is so awesome because it's really like doing the least during the day. So you also need to take that extrinsic and lifestyle factor into account as well.
Wow. Okay. So now, speaking of lifestyle factors, I think that a lot of the biohackers listening to the Augmented Life are experimenting with acute stressors. Like, I'll just speak for myself. I do multi-day fasting. I will go to a dry sauna. I will also do cold exposure, which is basically the opposite. But I, my own self experimentation has not proven to me which things I should really repeat and how often. Across your experience, when you think about the sauna visits or the super skin scrubs or just all of those, we're going to get really intense for one day kind of measures. Um, are there any that stand out that seem like particularly good that we should pay attention to?
The most important thing that you can do for your skin is to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And I know that that's elusive for a lot of people. So I hate to make that a leading recommendation. But there are other exposures that are particularly and maybe even surprisingly damaging to your skin. Sun is one that we know of, right? And so I guess this is a list of things that you could avoid if you really wanted to give your skin its absolute best day, right? So it would be give it an amazing night's sleep, avoid sun exposure, avoid smoke and smoking if that's something. Maybe probably most of your biohackers aren't doing that, but definitely avoid it. It's one of the leading drivers of skin aging. Another driver of skin aging is sugar. And I think that that's one that we very rarely talk about in the beauty industry, but it is one of the top drivers of skin aging. And then the last one is stress. And so, of course, the cortisol levels in your body do affect your skin. I mean, even something as simple as if your cortisol levels are spiking at night and waking you up, then you're getting disrupted sleep. And then that's going to affect the resilience of your skin and the repair of your skin barrier the next day. So I think that it's, of course, very cyclical and holistic, and a lot of the same logic that you would apply to having a really healthy and productive gut or a really productive circulatory system apply to the skin because it actually interacts with all of those other systems of your body. So just a really incredible nutrition protocol focused on prebiotics and probiotics, like your kimchis and all of those ingredients are the fermented ingredients are incredible for your skin, both internally and externally, supplementing with different types and strains of probiotics, having a really wonderful night's sleep, and then protecting your skin from the environmental exposures like the sun. Things like steaming, I think, are really good, but be thoughtful about how and when you do it. So when you steam your skin, you open up your pores. So you want to make sure that your skin is clean before you open up the pores, because if there's anything on your skin, it's just as soon as they close, it's going to suck all of that right back inside and make a lot more work for your skin at night. So clean skin if you're going to open your pores in any way. And then when you cool your skin, your pores close down. And like I said, it'll sort of trap in anything that was on the surface of your skin at the
Yeah,
time.
got it. Ooh, all right. Thank you for that. Your advice actually echoes what Brian Johnson, probably today's most famous biohacker, has also been saying. Like, he goes so far as to say, change your self-conception, become a
Mm,
professional sleeper.
yes.
That was really wild. Yeah.
I have to be honest, I'm personally very passionate about sleep. I consider it to be a superpower. I know that it's very hard and challenging. I mean, the research from the National Institute of Health says that 1 in 3 people are sleep deprived, and a lot of officials consider it to be a public health emergency. I think there's, something wild like $70 billion lost to the economy in productivity because of people having poor sleep. So it's really something that I know it's a very difficult thing I know it's a very difficult thing to necessarily master, but really taking all of the steps possible, having a very strong sleep routine. I mean, your body operates on clocks and cycles, and having that routine is incredibly important. Having the right temperature in your room, the right conditions in order to make sure that you are getting an effective night's sleep. It's magical. It unlocks so much.
Well, I feel like that's uh, on that is the most potent life advice that we should perhaps end on. But before we go, I want to ask you, how do people find out more about you, about Nocturnal Skincare, the company that you've started? Tell us where to find you.
Yes. So you can find me Nocturnal Skincare on social media. We're primarily active on Instagram, and you can also find me on LinkedIn, Katey Hassan. Nocturnal Skincare is a brand new brand. So there's going to be a lot coming from us in the future. And I'm just so excited to continue to dive into the science of the skin and its own natural processes, and bringing them to the market.
Me too. I'm looking forward to what you come up with next.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.